There's a episode in Jesus' life, which you're probably familiar with, where he goes into the temple and he drives out the money changers and such. We're going to look at that in Matthew 21. And we're going to talk about just a little bit briefly about what he was doing and what's the meaning of this. And just to try to gain an insight. It's not necessarily saying this is the only way to look at this, but it's something that can make it very meaningful, I think more personally meaningful. And that's what I like to do because Jesus did things very intentionally. He did them on purpose. He wasn't just haphazardly doing anything. So in Matthew 21, this is starting in verse 12, basically we'll read verses 12 and 13. So then Jesus went into the temple of God. Now we know that this was Herod's temple. This is a large structure. This is where sacrifices, offerings were made. It's also in the different courts because it had a lot of different areas around it that Jesus went and he taught. But he went into the temple and he drove out all those who bought and sold in the temple and overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold doves. So he's driving out, and we read elsewhere he made a whip, cords, and he drove them out. He's like, you all get out of here. So what's he doing? This is not in the actual place where they burn the incense, where they offer the sacrifices, but this is in the temple compound, in the temple area within this place. And Jesus then explains what he's doing. In verse 13, he says, and he said to them, it is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves. So what's Jesus telling us? What's he talking about? My house should be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves. And so when we look at this and we see he's driving out these money changers, these selling the animals for sacrifices for people and charging too much money for it, but setting up shop, setting up a business inside this temple. And Jesus drives them out. Now, we never see anything anywhere that Jesus got in trouble for this. So obviously what he was doing was not something that was out of the realm of acceptability, or they would have made a big issue over this. They didn't. But Jesus was less concerned about the temple as a physical building and structure than he was about the temple, which is his body, which is you and me. We are the temple because God dwells in you. He dwells in me. He dwells in us individually and personally. So when Jesus is driving out that he called thieves, the money changers and the sellers of these animals and for sacrifices, he drives them out and he's saying, you don't belong here. When we see the prophetic act then, Jesus is not concerned about a physical building. He is concerned about you and me and what's going on in my heart and what's going on in your heart. And so he says it's written that my house, and when we understand God dwells in you, you are the house of God. He wants his house, Jesus says, to be a house of prayer. Now we need to understand that prayer is really fundamentally about communion. It's about communication. It's about oneness. It's about union. It's about this connection and intimacy with God. And God wants dwelling in you to have this fellowship, to be a house of communion, of prayer, of conversation, of intimacy. And he kicks out all that doesn't belong there, the thieves. Not make it into something where someone else, something that's not appropriate, sets up shop and dwells and lives there. So God is in the process of completely redeeming, completely bringing into alignment you and me into his way of thinking and being, to actually conforming us and shaping us into the very image of Christ. It's a transformational process. And Jesus is so concerned about it that he does this prophetic act in the physical temple, driving out all that didn't belong in there. In this case, the money changers, the thieves, he calls them, because he doesn't want them competing for what this temple is supposed to be. And Jesus wants to drive out all that doesn't belong because he is the one that belongs. He and you have this union and this intimacy. You have union with him, and he wants that to be the heart and the core, that his house, you, me, be a house of intimacy, of communion, of prayer.